All right, everybody, welcome. Oh, my lights aren't even on. I'll turn back that on. Okay. So welcome back, everybody. We are live. We are doing a live deck profile of Vaylantz with our boy Shay. Let's go.
All right, so I want to go ahead and go through the card by card. So first off,
All right.
we have the most important card in the deck. That's Shinonome. Shinonome will get you basically any Vaylantz card. So each Vaylantz, of course, has different effects depending on if they were special summoned. I guess technically because the big ones don't have to be special summoned, but that doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
either when they're special summoned, meet their summoning conditions, or if they are moved. So Shinonome, ignore the cats in the background, but Shinonome will, on special summon, get you any Vaylantz spell or trap, which are literally the most powerful cards in the deck. And then when she is moved over any column or any zone, she'll just search you a monster. So anything you don't have, she'll get for you.
All right.
And, save for Ash, of course.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a couple cards
So
that
the way
move
that it always tends to work is you
around.
want to be constantly aware of where your zones are. Your left and rightmost monster zones, you want to keep clear as often as possible. And you also want to make sure that you're able to get into the proper plays. The level 5 and higher valences have the ability to immediately go into Grand Duke, which we'll get into later. If they're in the proper zone, you also want to make sure that you're not getting in the way of your pin scales, or
Mhm.
sorry, not the pin scales, the zone, the link zones, so that you can get out everything that you need. It's constant micromanagement. It's the same thing that Pendulum has always been ever since Electromite. So
Mm.
as long as you're aware of that, you shouldn't really have much of a problem playing the deck. Although seeing the lines can get difficult at times if you're inexperienced with the deck.
All right. So we play 3 copies of Shinonome, but we also do play 3 copies of another starter called Buster Baron. So can you explain more what Buster Baron does?
Sure. So Buster Baron is a good card in that it is a low level Valence, so it can always special summon itself, but it can move any Valence monster to an adjacent zone. This is one of the best cards to open with Shinonome if you have it available. But it also has the ability, and this is an ability that's not nearly as useful. You'll see it used more often if your opponent's playing a pin deck. But if it is moved from one zone to another, it will trigger to move a monster that's in the back row, the spell and trap card zones. This is Valence's unique form of removal, and move it to an adjacent zone. This doesn't usually matter for your own combos, but again, if your opponent's on something like Pendulum or whatever, or you want to line things up just right to burn them out of the game, there are some techs where this becomes necessary, but what's really important is the ability to move other monsters.
All right. So if you had to move other monsters on your own end, what monsters would you typically go for? So we have like Valence has pretty much like other monsters that you could go into, right?
So Nazca is really neat. If he's moved, uh, you can immediately summon a monster in your pen scale. This is really useful if you open 2 of the same card and you can only special summon 1 from the pin scale per turn.
Mm-hmm.
So he can get around that thanks to Baron's effect. Other cards down the line, Viscount will get you a pin scale from the extra deck if you need it. Just every other card will get you something if they're moved by Baron's effect. But what's
Mm-hmm.
really most important is that you don't really need to worry too much about it once Shinonome is out of the way, because once Shinonome is set, you'll be able to do whatever it is that you really need to with other card effects, things like solo activation, which we'll get into
Okay.
later, and
All right.
the big boss of the deck, which also moves zones.
All right. So
But
we play 3 copies of the Natsuki, but then moving on to another Valence monster, we play Mad Marquise, or as we call Marky Mark.
this is literally my favorite card in the entire deck because you wouldn't think it's very useful, but it always comes up. It's always the clutch
Mm-hmm.
card for me. So when he special summoned, you have the ability to roll a 6-sided die and you just prospe off the top of the deck.
Okay.
Get whatever card that you don't already have necessary for your combo. And if he's moved to an adjacent zone, you can roll a die. And it has Snipe Hunter rules. If you roll anything besides a 1 or a 6, you can summon something from your back row.
All right. All right. So pretty much it allows you to kind of just go through your deck a little bit more. Because what happens when we played, right? When we deck test a lot of this, we did roll
Hmm.
high rolls, but then we did get some really bad low rolls. Do you like have any
Yeah.
advice on terms of like when you should activate this? Like if you have nothing else in hand, is this your last resort, or when in what part of the combo would you activate this? After you go into Shinome, and you have like a marquee in hand, would you go into it immediately, or would you say to hold on to it for a bit later?
See, I like to use it immediately just because, as part of the usual combo that I like to see, cards like Shinonome and Baron, the
Mm-hmm.
idea is that you'll search Marquis, and then Marquis will get you anything that you're lacking. Because you do have a lot of targets in the deck because it gets you any Valence card off the top.
Mm-hmm.
The primary issue with it is that you do miss occasionally, but it all becomes very contextual, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're really missing out on card advantage. Sometimes you want to go for Viscount on Shinonome's watch
Mm-hmm.
instead of Marquess, but it comes down to whether or not you're willing to take the risk of the top deck, and if you're not, you're probably safer going for something like Viscount rather than
All right.
Marquess. But I like to have it out of the way as soon as possible because honestly, if I'm going to miss, I'm going to miss, and there's nothing I can do about
Yeah.
it.
All right, so we play 3 copies of Marquez, but moving on to the other card you're saying, do play 3 copies of Viscount over here. So can you explain more about what Viscount does? Like,
Sure. So this is a card that I really like right now. The funny thing is that when I first started playing the deck, I didn't realize the value in it because his summon effect is that he will allow you to place a Valence card as a continuous spell in the back row.
mm-hmm,
Now, notably, if it's in the back row as a continuous spell, even if it's in the pin scale, you cannot use it as a pin scale. It's just a mechanic of the game. So
mm-hmm,
instead, what's really important about that is that it becomes a key combo player when you unite it with the field spells, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
yep,
But also, he has the ability, if he's moved to an adjacent zone by Nazki or Baron's effect, he can just set you a pin scale. And you've already gotten a high scale in rotation through moving one of the bigger valence into an extra monster zone, go into Grand
mm-hmm.
Duke, et cetera, et cetera. You'll just immediately have a scale 10, which will allow you to summon basically anything in your deck.
All right. So moving on to another Valence monster, this is Scion. So can you explain what Scion is? Like, it really is helpful at the end of the day because when we played this deck, like we were just like, okay, let's just go Zion, activate effect, because it does come up quite a
Mhm.
bit when we played.
Oh yeah, Scion is your general removal. So he's a little bit weird in that you have to flip a coin, but it's very funny because even when you miss with the coin toss, it can really come up to help you in the end. Like let's say you care more about cutting a monster's attack in half, right? That
Yeah.
can come up really easily. But even if you get the effect negation, you've probably just won right there, no matter which case you're into. So if you're after effect negation and you get the attack down, you can just go to battle phase, attack over whatever's threatening you, and then continue your combo main too. But what's really important is that when the deck first came out, I only ever played him at 1 as a combo
Mm-hmm.
piece because the deck didn't really have any good ways to utilize his moving effect because
Yeah,
you didn't
until we
play
got the
the deck
fusion.
to go second. Hmm?
Yeah. Until we got the newest fusion, Arctos.
Yeah, yeah. When
Yeah.
we got the new fusion, that became very convenient for us because then all of a sudden you could leave him on your inboard turn 1, and then you'll just be able to get his other effect, which allows you to either bounce or just send from field to grave.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what, this card is able to come up very often, which is why I'm now running him at 3. So my desired end board, which is really hard to get into right now, just because you don't want to play too many of the high level Valence because they're more of an end board kind of piece, and you kind of want to search them out in some way, shape, or form as you go through the game. And when we have more access to high scales later on, we'll be able to search them a little bit more effectively. But Dominator Duke, his summon effect allows him to just target a back row, and it's Trickstar Light Stage. They can't
Mm-hmm.
activate it, and there's nothing they can do about it until the end of the turn. And then, if he has moved from one zone to another, you just snatch steal an opponent's monster, and it becomes a Valence monster, which will come up when we get to Hojo.
All right. So moving on, like you said, so let's talk Hojo now. So this is the kind of the level 8 fusion summon, I guess, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so Hojo does a couple of things for the deck. Number one, he can bounce a face-up spell or trap in the back row. He doesn't bounce field spells, which is really unfortunate, but that doesn't usually matter all that much. There aren't that many high-power field spells you have to worry about. And most of the time, there's some field spells you wouldn't want to bounce in the first place. Pellerino, hello.
Yeah.
But what he can do, if he's moved, he has the ability to fusion summon. And
Mm-hmm.
notably, he can also use your scales as fusion material. Um,
All right.
and he's part of my desired end board in that during your opponent's turn you can swap him and Dominator Duke,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can go chainlink one Hojo, chainlink two Duke, and then chainlink three Arctos, which represents a non-targeting pop, a snatch steal, and then you can fusion summon using your opponent's monster you've stolen as material, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on to Kai Kendo Spirit. Obviously, this is kind of the easiest part to explain because it is our only level or scale 9 card, right? Like this is the
Yeah.
one key piece that kind of makes this deck work.
Yeah. So in different versions of the deck, it's easier to get into high scales using a card. We'll see in the extra deck in a little bit, but Kendo Spirit is really neat in that he's a spirit monster, which means he's constantly bouncing the hand. Even if you like are in a desperate place and you need to normal summon him, he can come up pretty easily because he has a really cool normal summon effect, which is probably the best of the spirit pendulum
Mm-hmm.
monsters. So it's the reason that I choose him over the other ones. But what's what essentially where you pick up Kendo Spirit is when you go into Beyond the Pendulum, that's usually the card you're searching out. And if you happen to have him, then you can just search out any Vaylantz monster you haven't used yet. So
Mm-hmm.
he's basically here as a high scale, but for a spell card purpose, he's also really important for later on.
Yeah. And then that's kind of it for like our main valence kind of core that we're running, right? So this is kind of the part that we kind of figured out together was this is the part that we kind of built like to decide in the mythical beast Jackal, King, and then Cerberus. So I guess like pretty much it's allows like even the Jackal like could help you out in the end, right? Even though you only run one of, like if you have this on board and you're able to activate your Kai Kendo Spirit, you still gain spell counters. And what you're able to do, right? You're able to negate a monster effect. So this is Nibiru protection as well, right?
Yeah. So number one, of course, Jackal has Nibiru protection, which is really important. But as part of the Cerberus package, what you can do is you can set Cerberus, activate Cerberus, pop itself, get Jackal, place Jackal, activate Jackal, summon Cerberus, and therefore you've already got a monster on field that you can use to help get into like Beyond the Pendulum or
Mm-hmm.
something without actually using your normal summon. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a really good pendulum package that also has a pretty unique ability. So Cerberus has the ability to you can banish a face-up monster your opponent controls. It gains attack equal to the banished monster's original attack until the end of the opponent's turn. So, in a bit of a pinch, it can also be a good way to clear out threats to your board before you've started making it if you're going second.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a little bit iffy because it can be at times bricky if you draw Jackal by itself, but even then, if you're able to set up the combo right, Jackal just serves as an extra monster negate to help deal with threats like, of course, Nibiru,
Mm-hmm.
and then anything else your opponent might throw at you, like Ash. Yeah, so as far as Game of Seal goes, number one, it's searchable off Small World, but we'll get into exactly why Small World is so important in just a second, because it's just coming up in a couple of cards. Of course, it's just immediate removal. You don't have to worry too much about it. You only really need to play the one in other versions of the deck, depending on what I want my end board to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's the unique part about Vaylantz is that you can literally build any end board as long as it specifically loses to Dark Ruler. But I'm hoping that with the new support coming out, that that'll change. But as far as Gamma Seal goes, it's searchable. It's a good way to out threats like Shangri-Ira and
Jagoon.
all the other things that would otherwise cause us some issue. Yeah, flu. Next card, which is
Gizmek
Gizmek Okami. Okami's removal effect to just wipe your opponent's board of extra deck monsters comes up a lot more often than you think. We had that come up, and then we
Yep.
completely forgot about it's only one monster can attack per turn. On the plus side, it does make this the literal best small world deck in the game. The goal was to have every single card in the deck searchable with small world, which is why in other versions of the deck I play Gardala alongside Gamma Seal so that I can get into Kendo Spirit in a pinch. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of options here that that Small World just opens up. It's literally the most impressive Small World deck. It feels like it was built for it.
Big brain, big brain. All right, so we kind of went
Ginormous
over.
brain.
Yeah, so that's pretty much we play 3 copies of Small World because that's what the deck is built around, just in case you need to find those extra pieces, right?
Hmm.
All right, so
Yeah,
moving
and
on.
on top
Yeah,
of oops, sorry.
no, you go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Small World can also get you into Master Cerberus because we have a couple of level 8s in the deck. The Cerberus and Jackal are of course spellcasters, which all the Water Valence are. So
Mm-hmm.
it just everything lines up so perfectly that if you're not playing Small World in this deck, you're playing it wrong.
Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on to our just basically it's all Vaylantz spells after this because we don't play any like imperms, no dark rulers, which you can in your side deck if you would like to. But so let's start with Soul Awakening. You'll probably say this is the best card in the deck. Can you explain more why?
Yeah. Number one, not ashable. It immediately places any valence monster in the pendulum scale. So usually you'll use it to get Shinonome, which is clearly why she's printed on the card. But it's also really interesting. It's the only spell card in the deck with a graveyard effect that
Mm-hmm.
can be activated in the same turn. So the idea is you'll scale Shinonome with it, you'll summon Shinonome, you'll get the field spell or a way to it if you don't have it already. Then you activate the field spell, which turns off your opponent's imperms and lightning storms and whatever. And then you can activate solo activation in the same turn because it requires a field spell in order to use its graveyard effect. Move Shinonome over, and that gets you a monster, which allows you to go basically full.
Okay.
And also, in some versions of the deck, solo activation is an FTK.
Okay. So I think we kind of didn't mention is that there are shopping ports for this deck, and a lot of them kind of revolve around Shinonome. If you kind of end up screwed over by not getting a good hand or like not having like any ability, do you just pass game go to game two?
It's really interesting because one of the things you can bank on with this deck, and this isn't a good selling point for the deck, I'm sure, but um, the uh, the funny thing is that your opponent doesn't know what your cards do. So a lot of the
Hmm.
times they'll end up negating the wrong things. Actually, one of the funniest things that I've ever seen from me playing this deck is that most people that have Nibiru in hand will wait for a pendulum summon in order to Nibiru. And the
Yeah,
funny thing is that I can go through an entire Valence combo without ever pendulum summoning because it's actually not that important.
yeah.
Um,
All the
because of the
important is
fact
that it's
that
your set scales.
yeah, you just need the pendulum scales to summon things from, and from there, since it locks you into valence monsters except from the extra deck, if you have any cards in hand like say Gamma Seal, or you have one of the mythical beast monsters, or whatever, you can't summon them. So a lot of the times I just make a board that doesn't require pendulum summon, so I can go into a 3-mana Appaloosa, and then they'll just be like, "Wait, I had Nibiru."
What?
It's like, well, it's too late now. I already got a monster again.
Too bad. All right. All right. So moving on to our 2 copies of Valence War. So you would probably say this is probably like one of the bigger important cards because Valence Wars allows you to get the field spell, right?
Yeah. So Valence Wars will get you one copy of one of the field spells. It also has the ability that you can pop a pendulum card that you control. Doesn't have to be Valence in order to get a copy of Senate Switch, which helps the deck. Isn't really necessary. The funny thing about Valence Wars is that it's the only card in the deck that I could argue really needs to be played guaranteed, or not even guaranteed, but it can be argued that you can play one or two of it. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times you want two of it in case the game ends up grinding a little bit, but usually with the deck, if you're not setting up a board your opponent can't beat through, you're wanting to OTK. So I play two just to make sure I see it more often, so that I can usually just feel safe searching solo activation off of Shinonome, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not necessary that I see it all the time.
All right. So let's also explain the secondary effect where we can actually pop
Mm-hmm.
one of our valence or pendulum monsters. I don't have the valence monsters, right? It has to be a
Yeah.
pendulum monster in the pendulum zone, and we can just pop it and grab Senate Switch, which is the next card that we play. So we only play one copy. Can you
Well,
explain more why? Because it is kind of jank.
Well, the thing about the Vaylantz card that searches the field spell, you can pop any pendulum monster or any pendulum card that you control in order to get to the Senate switch. But what you need, the but what the other effect says is that you can banish it from grave except the turn it was sent, which is really annoying to set a pendulum scale from the extra deck. So
Mm-hmm.
um, in that case, we'll talk about Senate switch now, where Senate switch. You only really need to play it at one because you don't really need it. The deck has enough of an easy time to move things on their own. And you only really search Senate Switch if you happen to have like an extra copy of Scion or
Mm-hmm.
Nazki or another card that you're not going to summon back out. So it usually when it comes up, it's really good, but you don't need it. So I don't
Mm.
really bother with playing more than one of it.
All right. So moving on to our final four cards, which basically are the field spells. So they basically are the same card. The only caveat being is that you just need different names, right?
Yeah. So the rule of the Valence field spells is when you activate one, you have to activate one in your opponent's field zone at the same time. So of course they have to be different names, which implies that there will be more field spells with different names for Valence. I hope and pray. Um, but what makes the field spells so good, right, is that you're able to number one back row an opponent's monster if you have a monster in the same column, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it also allows you to summon out your big valence monsters without having to control a monster of a lower level. That's one of the
Mm.
things that I think I hinted at earlier was that in order to summon Hojo, you need a spellcaster
Yep.
valence on field. If you want to summon out Duke, you need a machine, but the field spell kind of circumnavigates that. So otherwise, one of the things you do want to make sure that you do, and this is really important, I want to bring up, is that when you have the opportunity to pop one of your own or one of the field spells, always pop your own because it is more important that your opponent doesn't have access to both field spells because they can activate it on their turn if they want. So they can recover one or even back row your own monsters. So
Yeah.
uh, take it from me, pop one when you got it.
Yeah.
But
And
don't use
and also it
beyond
shuts
the
off
pendulum's
your
effect to do it.
yeah. It also shuts off the imperm and also the lightning storm, like you said before. But yeah,
Yep.
so just
And
be
even the
aware
match.
that there is that you do kind of need to leave your opponent's side, but not yours.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for the main deck. Pretty cheap overall. It literally says $40.50. But when we go to the extra deck, this is kind of where it gets a bit expensive. But overall, you would say this is like more of a budget friendly deck, right?
Well, yeah, it's definitely budget friendly. I originally bought the deck at like $35, and I think the Mythical Beast engine is a good chunk of where that money comes in. Maybe a little bit
Yeah.
of Small World, but the extra deck is really funny because you don't have to play every single card in it that's not a
Mm-hmm.
Valence name. So you can mix and match depending on what board you want to build. Because, like I said, Valence is a deck where the entire purpose is basically pulling out any generic boss monster out of your binder and slapping them.
Yeah.
You know, I can make Mannequin Cat and the Juggernaut card that can protect one
Mm-hmm.
monster on the field. I can make a 3 mana Apollosa. I think Apollosa is pretty cheap right now.
Yeah.
And like Exterio, which is really cheap. So, you know, you have options if you don't want to spend a ton of money on it, but we can go into the card.
All right, so let's start off with the first copy of one copy of Arctos 12. All right, so what does this
Yeah.
card do and how do we go into it?
So, Arctos, you only need 2 high-level Valence monsters on the field. Doesn't matter where they're at, which is very, very cool. And you don't need to fusion summon to get into it. Um, what you need to know about this card, and this is really important, is that he is a quick effect swap to monsters in any of the zones. So you can move your opponent's monsters. That doesn't really matter. Never really comes up. But you can also move your own, which is how you proc Scion's removal effect. It's how you proc Hojo's fusion effect. It's how you take advantage of Duke's snatch steal effect on your opponent's turn. So
Mm-hmm.
it basically does everything for you on your opponent's turn, and it gives you access to up to 3 spots of removal at the same time. If he's destroyed, he doesn't have the ability to place himself in the zone like another card in the extra deck does. But if you can get him back in there, like say through Viscount or through
Mm-hmm.
Valence Wars, he can summon himself or move a monster to another zone. And notably, he is a pin scale 12, so he can summon even the big
Ooh,
fusions out
yeah.
of the extra deck.
All right. Speaking of big fusions, let's go to our copy of Mamanaka. So this one does require resources to go into, and I think when we played right, we weren't going into this one like constantly, but we were going it during our opponent's turn. And can you explain more about that?
Yeah, so the Valence Discord is going to be very upset at me for this, but I actually like Mamanaka a lot. A lot of people don't typically play it because it is very resource intensive, and there's not a lot of good ways to go into it. You really need Hojo and Arctos at the same time to make it happen, and even then, you need a third name in order to make it work because there's no real way to cheat out Mamanaka.
Hmm.
However, Mamanaka has the most interesting removal of all time, which is take a monster and slap it in the back row. I cannot tell you how many times this has come up because I'll be playing against something like Branded, right? If you back row Mirror Jade, I've said it a dozen times before, but if you back row Mirror Jade, they can only control one, so they're stuck.
Hmm.
So not only that, but if he's destroyed, he scales himself. He's of course a scale 10, which is one of the highest in the deck, and you'll be able to summon anything back off, and he can summon himself right out of the
Yeah.
zone. So
Yeah.
it's very convenient, has the best option for removal, and all you have to do is, dedicate your entire board to make him.
Well, also Monaka is like I think one of the okay. So I think Arctos, Monaka, and I think Rainbow Magician are the only like 10 plus scales that we actually have in Yu-Gi-Oh. They're very rare, the high scales, because it would be too broken in a way. That's why we have tons of shitty low scales.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving on. We also have another 10 scale, which is Vaylantz Genesis Grand Duke. Do you want to explain more about this does and how do we go into it?
So, Grand Duke can cheat himself out by attributing any high level valence monster that is in the same column as an extra monster zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually really important because what you can do is you can scale him using Viscount, and then you can not have to worry about searching with Beyond the Pendulum, the Kendo Spirit, and so you can just continue your regular combo, get more advantage, and he's usually used as an OTK tool because
Mm-hmm.
if you happen to back row an opponent's monster, right? Uh, you can special out Grand Duke. Grand Duke will put that monster back to hand. So let's say you
Mm-hmm.
Gamma Seal someone, and then
Yeah.
you back row the Gamma Seal, and then you bounce the Gamma Seal. Your opponent's taking 2,200, and he gains 1,100, so he becomes 3,600.
Mm-hmm.
Notably, this effect to send a card back to hand and then burn the opponent is not once per turn, so
Mm-hmm.
you can do it again. And I've literally done this to an opponent in Master Duel once. I was playing against Sacred Beast, and I
Mm-hmm.
back rowed two of his Sacred Beasts, and then I summoned out two Grand Duke and did 8,000 damage off of his Hamon and
Yeah.
his Raviel. It was great,
Yeah.
but it's he's really easy to get out. You don't usually leave him on the board because he doesn't do anything once he's burned your opponent,
Mm-hmm.
unless you're hitting for big damage. But um, he can also, of course, special summon himself from the scale, but he doesn't put himself there. So what you need die count for. It's really unfortunate. I do wish he could scale himself because
Yeah.
he's otherwise not great. But you know what? I'll take it. He's very cool.
All right. So that's we played two copies of them, and then we kind of move on to our generic stuff right here. So we just played the one copy of Baguska, the terribly tired tapir. That pretty much is just for your protection, right?
Yeah, it's basically if you're like really lacking on things to summon or you're lacking on resources,
Yeah.
you can get out Baguska. You can basically get out any rank four. In the past, I've used Abyss Dweller. I've used Cowboy to help OTK better and go
Mm-hmm.
second variants. There's a couple of things you can do. Baguska is just the tried and true.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to the way to get into Baguska is Puzzle Amino, the drop and deleter. So you want to explain more what this card does and what kind of needs to be set up beforehand?
This card is amazing. So in Pendulum decks, he definitely should be used more often. But the idea is that you can summon a monster to the zone that he points to, and you can just change the monster's level to whatever you want. So you can make it a level 4, go into Baguska or whatever. In my primary version of the deck, um, I have I have Cyberstein in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'll do is I will use Viscount to scale Marquis, and then activate the field spell. One of the field spells has the ability to summon from the back row whatever monster you want.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd summon Marquis to the zone that Puzzleanimo points to, turn it into a level 4, go into Gear Gigant X, search Cyberstein, and then I can just go on from there. So basically, the Puzzleanimo will get you into any XCs that you want to run as long as it is level 8 or lower.
All right. So moving on to our kind of bread and butter of the deck that kind of helps out a ton, which is Beyond the Pendulum. Do you want to go into more about Beyond the Pendulum?
Yeah. So Beyond the Pendulum is Electromite Light. And you want to play it at 2 because it gives you an option if like something happens, it gets negated by some strike or something, or
Mm-hmm.
you end up somehow surviving past turn 2. It gives you the ability to search any pendulum monster in the deck, which will come up a lot. Sometimes you don't really need to go into Beyond, depending on the version of the deck you're playing. You don't even pendulum summon, like I said before. But what's really cool, if you're going second and you scale and you summon 2 monsters to her zones, then she'll just pop 2 cards for free. That came up in our replay video that you posted
Yeah.
recently.
Mm-hmm.
But she's basically what gets your combo going. Once you have any 2 names on board, if you have 1 name in hand, she'll search out another Vaylantz, she'll search out Kendo Spirit, she'll
Yep.
search out whatever it is that you don't.
Yeah, and in terms of going second, it's pretty good, right? Even though we were playing against Unchained, that was kind of a issue, but you would
Mhm.
you would say it's pretty good going second as well.
Yeah, it's usually pretty good going second. Just don't use it against Unchained. It will make you very sad.
Yeah. I don't even know. In our Unchained video, right? I think he spent all his resources first, and then he had some weird trap card that just brought back one of them, and they kind of spiraled out of control from there.
Yeah, but what can you do?
All
Sometimes you
right.
just have bad games.
Yeah. All right. So next up is IP. This is kind of easy. It's a link to. You're able to go into
Yeah,
link monsters during your opponent's turn, which kind of leads into your next copy of your Nightmare Unicorn during your opponent's phase, and then it can also get you into your Appaloosa. But more of the times, right? We were using our Beyond the Pendulum to go into the Appaloosa, right?
yeah. Usually it'll be you'll use any 2 valence that you've spent plus beyond in order to go into a 3 mat Appo. You'll want to, if you have the opportunity to go into IP so that you can go into things like Avermax, you're welcome to do so. But it all depends on what your opponent's running. If you don't know what they're into, you can safely go into an IP or into a 3 mat Appo and feel good. But if you know what your opponent's on and you know they can't win against Avermax because some decks just lose to Avermax,
Mm-hmm.
you can just go into IP, go into Avermax, feel good about yourself, and then watch your opponent cry.
Pass
And
game
then
two.
yeah, pass game 2. A lot of versions of the deck. I've actually had a lot of so this is the deck that I played in Tier Shizu format, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I would do is I was still playing Cyberstein at the time, and in some versions I still do. But the goal was I could end on a 3 mat indestructible Appaloosa. I would end on Exterio, and then I would end on Mannequin Cat, and I had a copy of Indepth in the deck, which I would use on
Mm-hmm.
any of their dark monsters to summon.
Mm.
So
Okay.
there were options.
All right. So we kind of touched upon it before, but Midnight Crusade Avermax, it does require 2 plus monsters from the extra deck. That's why you use your Beyond the Pendulum as well as your IP. But we can also use Vaylantz from time to time, right?
Yeah, because since you're pendulum summoning occasionally, they count as extra deck monsters or monsters summoned from the extra deck. So Avermax is literally the easiest card to summon in this entire. Usually you want to make it with IP because IP is IP.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can just use if you're trying to I'm trying to figure out how you would avoid Nibiru by ending on Avermax, but I guess you really
No.
can't. But
Yeah, you can't really.
um, but you do have options in case you are running really short on resources and you're
Mm-hmm.
just desperate to get an Avermax on board,
Yeah.
or if you spent your IP making Appo before.
Yeah. Yeah. So Avermax is probably one of the better extra deck monsters that isn't a Valence card so far. But we
Yeah,
kind of just after that, it's just boss monster after boss monster, right? So we have Boral Sword. This kind of allows us to go into our do multiple damage per turn, right?
Yeah. So Boral Sword is of course your OTK enabler. He does everything that you want from him, as long as you haven't used Gizmek's effect. But he's one of the few monsters I would say is mandatory for the extra deck. As far as mandatory goes, you want Puzzleonimo for the combo enabler. You want IP Masquerena, you want Apollosa, you want Boral Sword. Everything else is kind of up in the air. You can change it to your to how you want it, but Boral Sword is a mandatory. He's so easy to get into with this deck, and he just does everything for you if your opponent isn't prepared for it.
All right. So next I would play Access Code Talker and then Underworld Goddess, obviously for our IP, depending on how many stuff your opponent
Mm-hmm.
has. But going to the side deck, it kind of is simple, right? Because you were saying you play this during tiers, right? So a lot of the Lancia stuff like that on the draw and lock birds and all that kind of stuff is like kind of standard. You would say, would you like? But I also said before you'd probably add Dark Luna more and like Lightning Storms just clear board clearers, right?
Yeah. Um, so the extra deck or the side deck, it was specifically chosen. Number one, yeah, of course, it was tier format. You couldn't do really much about it. You
Yeah.
play what you could in order to stop it. But the other reasons that I played it was, and I still continue to play some of it. Lancia. There's a lot of banish shenanigans going on right now that you kind of want to
Hmm.
avoid. Of course, Gamma is always going to be good. But what makes this really important is the fact that they're all small world bridges. So
Hmm.
you can see that Droll's a wind. You can go into Kinda Spirit by using the proper monsters for it. Not for this version of the deck. I don't think there's anything with zero attack. Oh wait, it's a spellcaster. What am I thinking?
Yeah,
Um,
Spellcaster.
so you can go from any Vaylantz monster into Kinda Spirit eventually. Let me think. So if you have Gizmak or you have
The
friggin'
other Mothra, yeah.
well, if you have Mothra, sure, but if you
Yeah.
have even if you have just the Master Cerberus, you can reveal another Valence monster going to Droll. Um,
Yeah.
but it's complicated. I'm not going to worry about it. But yeah, they all serve as small world bridges. Of course, if you want to know about Lancia, you can use Lancia. It's got
What?
1700 attack, which is the same as Marquis. And then it's a light, so it also works with Gamma. Gamma, of course, is level 2, so you can use it to get into Shinonome. And then, of course, you have Cyberstein, which you can make with Puzzleonimo and Gear.
Hmm. Yeah.
And most people don't have anything for Exterio. Usually, if they don't have Dark Ruler or if they don't have Dark Ruler or Droplet, you just kind of win from there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Exterio is not once per turn, so you just kind of win, getting a good
Yeah, there we
hand
go.
and end up winning the die roll. So we'll see.
Yeah. Let me up our volume. What was it before? If they choose rock and we go scissors because they choose paper. Oh, they chose scissors this time. Interesting. All right, so let's do 2 replays and then we should be good.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm just not waiting to cut down this hour-long VOD. Oh, this is horrible. Okay.
Oh no. No
All right.
names? How is that possible? Half of our deck is names.
Yeah, it's like we didn't fucking shovel. We'll just go to the next one.
Here, let me
That
look.
was a bad
Oh,
hand. You get bad hands.
for
Like,
a second it said tie.
yeah. Well, that's the thing, though, right? Like, out of all the cards, right, we only run like 10 spell cards, and that's how
Yeah,
bad that
right.
hand was. We had such a bad hand that. Ooh, okay, so we're going
Literally
first.
statistically impossible.
All right, so this is a better hand than what we had from before.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I'll let you guide me.
Sure. So here I would go for the Cerberus just to get Jackal into rotation. Jackal doesn't do anything for us if we end up getting it to hand. So we'll just go ahead and see if the opponent's got the Ash. They do not. Fantastic. So we can scale a Jackal. And then Jackal to get out Cerberus. Beautiful. So here we can go into the solo activation, which will get us Shinonome.
Turn on card, the card thing. All
Yeah.
right, so it doesn't really matter where you place it, right?
Yeah, this one doesn't matter. Sometimes it does. We also got the Kendo in hand already, which is funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll activate Sheena. And
And
then
then
she'll
activate it
get us the
again.
card that searches the field spell.
We got wars. And then since we haven't got an imperm just yet, should we even activate the field spell or
My philosophy is if you don't have the field spell already on field, go for it.
okay?
So yeah, we want it on field. It gives us the best protection, and that way, if the opponent's just like toggled off for something bigger or whatever, we don't have to worry about it. No, don't
No,
search
don't
Sand Swift. You
pawn.
don't need it.
Yeah. All right, so we'll activate the field spell now, right?
Yep.
So in order to clear space, right, should we go into a link to using our Cerberus and our Shino, or should we wait until?
Well, we cannot. We can actually right now use the solo activation to go ahead and get a search off of Sheena,
Okay.
and here we can get the Marquis.
Marky Mark. Okay. And
It's
that's
your
another thing
boy.
too, right? Where we're moving our stuff around so we clear up space in our pendulum zones, right?
Yeah.
So let's
Here
just
we can go into.
let's just start scaling, right?
Well, yeah, I would get Mark here. Don't put Viscount just yet. So get
Okay.
Marquis, and then we'll just high roll it, and
High
then
roll, high roll, high roll. Ooh,
yeah,
I guess.
sure, why not?
Why not?
Again, not favorable, but it happens. So here we're
hmm
going to go into Beyond using Mark and Cerberus.
And then we'll activate effects, right? And since
Yep.
we already have the high skill, we can literally search out anything that we want. So what would you say is the best? Should we go for Natsuki? Should we go for Scion or Hojo?
I like Hojo just because Hojo is Hojo.
All right. So we want to scale Hojo on the left, right?
Yeah. Always
And then
put the Veil monster on the opposite side of your Link monster.
yeah. All right. So then we'll pendulum summon out, right?
Yeah, we'll Pendulum Summon. We'll get. Let's go for Jackal and Marquis.
Okay. Should we even go for Viscount at the end of the day? Like,
Uh, we'll worry about Viscount in a minute. We can summon
all
him out in
right.
a minute.
And that's going to return to hand.
So
All right.
here,
So
what we
what's
can do.
next?
This is really cool. We'll go Hojo summon himself, and then we can go into Arctos using Hojo and Marquis.
We want to free up space, right? Let's keep our
Yep.
pendulum zones clear. Not activate the effect yet.
Yeah, and then we're going to scale Viscount to summon himself because we're going to put Hojo in the other pendulum scale. He'll be a continuous spell, but we're going to use the field spell to summon him out. But go ahead and
Okay.
summon Viscount using his own effect.
Yep. Oh, we do have some questions right now. All right, Giacollo's
Yep.
in chat right now. What do you think about the new Fusion Reinforcement spell card? And Vaylantz versus Flower Guardian would be an interesting game. Who would win? Card game within a card game and a board game within a card game. Yeah, so we'll activate Viscount's effect, right? We'll set
We'll
the
get Hojo in the other zone.
Hojo in the other pendulum zone, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll just use your field spell to bring it out.
Yep.
All right.
So what we can do now, we can go into a 3-mat Apo using Beyond, Shino, and Viscount. This gives us 4 monster negates and a pop and a fusion summon on the opponent's turn.
Yep. And what we should do now, right? We should just activate the copy of Arctos, right?
Yeah, we'll use Arctos. We'll swap him and Jackal to pop our field spell. Unfortunately, we can't go into Mamanaka next turn because
Oh,
we needed one
he's
more
playing
scale. And
Bestials. Interesting. So I guess we'll just negate that. I don't.
yeah, why not?
Why not? This is what we're showing up the deck, right? So
Yeah.
Jackal
Which
and
Bestial was it? Oh, it was Magnum.
it was yeah. So we'll
Oh no,
activate.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
because
I thought we were doing something
yeah.
else.
No. We got to pop our own, and then I guess we'll just activate our copy of Kendo. Again
activate Kendo
to get the two
just
spell counters.
Jackal. Perfect.
All right, and that's gonna be end turn. All right, let's see what they have. They're playing Vicios, but that could be literally be anything. It's an engine.
Yeah, it could be Dragon Link. It could be
They're
branded
playing pre-prep, so maybe
Dogmatica.
oh. What?
Oh,
They're
oh, this is a
playing
combo deck. Oh,
Magic-y?
this
Okay.
is the worst.
Interesting.
This,
Okay.
this is actually really bad. Oh no, yeah, they're playing combo turbo.
Okay.
They
All right,
basically
let's
play
see
a
how
little
this
bit of
matchup.
everything.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Just a bunch of stuff thrown together. All right. So we're gonna hold off, I guess, until they're gonna do that. So they have math
yeah,
Magic-y. Should we negate it? I guess we could do Jackal first, right?
yeah. We'll do Jackal first since we're not at risk of him attacking over us.
Yeah. Thank God Hulk is banned.
Right.
Hey, that would be such a bad way. Oh, okay, we'll just go Hulk, this, and this.
Yeah, if we had one more name, we could have gone into Mamanaka as well, which would have
Yeah.
dealt with anything he can pull out of the extra deck, which actually would have ended
Yeah.
the game. But unfortunately, we drew the Gamma Seal and got a really bad roll off of Marquis.
We got the low one, dude.
But
That was rough.
but I do appreciate the fact that we still ended this turn with 4 monster negates and a free pop.
Yeah. I think he really has nothing else left, just because of like
Yeah, I
the
think he's
timer's
running the
just going.
timer.
I think just running timer. All right. So if I cut here inside the video, just know that we won. All right. All right. So we'll go rock. They went paper. So we're probably going second. Yeah, we're going second.
We do the Jackal too. That's kind of
Yeah,
sucky.
that's a
We
bit
can't we
rough.
can't special summon it from hand if we go Baron or Viscount.
Yeah.
And we can't summon. Well, we can summon Natsuki if we get the field spell, but we need a killer top deck for this to be worth.
Yeah. Sometimes you
Of
never
course, our
know. They
opponent
just
could just run out of time.
yeah. Sometimes you'll run into these people who just like don't do anything, and then you wait out the stuff. Oh
Yeah.
no. Oh, Runix. Okay.
Runic.
All right.
We don't have the hand traps to stop it.
Yeah.
Man, of all the times to not be doing a best of 3 versus meta where we can just drop a droll.
Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Well, at least we can show some of the weaknesses of the deck. Obviously, Jackal sucks to brick on. You do
Yeah.
need multiple names to make it worth. This isn't the worst, though, theoretically. If he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
banish our high scale, we can still actually go into our. We can still go into Beyond, get the high scale, and then at least go into an Avermax, which he
Mm-hmm.
can't do anything about.
Yeah.
Because don't all the runic cards target?
Yes. It's all targeting. I don't
Yeah.
think there's
So
generic removal. I think there's one that might just say send to graveyard, but I think you still target with certain ones. Um. Yeah. Because the what's it called? The flashing fire was that okay? So they're gonna go main phase. Okay, so that was kind of what I didn't want them to do, was to get the runic fountain because they're doing the main phase.
mhm.
Okay, they banished one marquee and one Natsuki.
Okay, that's not the worst.
Yeah, and plus it allows us to get a better top deck at the end of the day. Oh, they're playing
Mm.
Sprite. Okay,
Uh, I don't know if we can do anything about Sprite.
all right, we'll try and we'll see what happens. But there's a good way to showcase that the deck is like there's a hard level cap to what it could contend with.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because usually with if you're going first, you don't really struggle against them because you can deal with Sprite. Sprite doesn't do anything. Runic
Yeah.
also doesn't really do anything if you go into the right boss monsters. Um, and then you can also like deal with things like cash. I've had a lot of people who play cash who will just block the 1 pin scale, but if you don't
Mm-hmm.
block them both, you've basically just forfeited right there.
Yeah.
Um, so it all comes down to whether or not you win the die roll, which does really suck. But what can you do?
Passing game two. I'm sorry. But yeah,
I
so
mean,
this guy's taking
if
a
we
while.
were to go,
He's I think this guy's
yeah, if we were to go to
learning
game
his
two,
deck.
then
We would
yeah,
have extra
if we were
stuff.
to go to
Yeah.
game two, we could have at least rolled him, and that would have been really
Yeah.
funny. Come on, live twin as well. Can we not?
Dude, what is this deck? What is this mishmash of like? I want to play all the meta cards.
I've seen it around. It's basically a live. They probably have the nimble cards as well.
Yeah, it's just
They're
like
basically playing every good
Link's
level
rank 2.
two.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Notably, they can't go into the rank 4, or yeah,
Link 4.
the link 4. Yeah, they can't go into the link 4 because of big guy.
Yeah, they already screwed themselves over bringing this guy out early. Then again, I'm pretty sure he was just using it to get the other stuff, and then he's going to allow it bring back the Kiss a Kill. But my point, right? It's like you're kind of doing these combos without proccing certain effects. Like you're gonna burn through some of them.
Yeah.
And then he's probably gonna like set back row and then pass turn.
Their best case here, they go into a second copy of Kiss a Kill if they have it, and
Yeah.
then they can make like IP Mask. That'll give them a pop, whatever it is that Mask is going to get them.
Yep.
Which I guess in that situation could possibly even be. No, it wouldn't have been Underworld Goddess. He'd be one
No.
more monster for it.
Honestly, I mean, he could use our monster if we had to bring it out early enough. Like, honestly, he probably is gonna run
Oh
out of
yeah,
time
yeah, yeah.
before he gets to even our turn.
Well, yeah. I was saying that his ideal would be to go to Kiss a Kill, which would allow him to get a pop on our turn. But
Mhm.
if he did that and he went into IP, he wouldn't have enough monsters because Goddess requires 5 or 4.
Yeah. Oh, please run out of time. It'd be so funny, and we would have this all live on camera. He's got 45
So I'd
seconds
be a
left,
fan.
dude. I think I'd be a fan of that too. But he's probably gonna pass like right here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Bad top deck. Bad top deck.
Well, on the plus side, we can scale Jackal. He'll negate it because he doesn't read. And no, that's a bad play. That's bad. Okay, fine.
It's fine. We'll roll with it.
Let's see. Okay.
He probably is. He probably is gonna be like, oh, because he has Ritter cards in hand, he can pop our back row. Forgot about that. Because of this field spell.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, he's gonna let it go. Wow. Okay. Not expecting that, but we'll just do
so
this. Right.
well,
We'll do
what I would
Vaylantz
have
Forge and
done is
pop
I would have
scale.
tried to bait it out by scaling Baron, and
All
then
right.
or maybe even scaling Viscount. Oh, you what?
He's gonna let it go through, and that's my concern. And I'm like, okay. Um.
Sure.
Okay.
Um.
Is he gonna draw us now?
So
Okay, he's gonna banish that. Draw one. All right. We're gonna bait out another negate. See if he just negates Senate switch.
if he negates Senate Switch with Carrot, we win.
Oh
Or
my
is it
god.
Carrot? Oh. Okay.
Oh, wow. Okay. We got all our science are gone. Cool. Um
So
the only issue is that I'm worried about the field spell, right? You still can activate quick play card. So should we
well,
try to bait
yeah.
out the carrot or should we try to go for get rid of fountain first?
See, what I'm afraid of is that if we go for the carrot, if we try to bait out the carrot with the field spell, we don't have an answer to the cards in his hand, which is the
Yeah.
unfortunate part. So
Do we want to
I'm stubborn. I would try to I try to suss him out with a Viscount to see if we can get him to activate carrot. Because if we can get him to out himself with carrot, then we can play the field spell, and then his runic cards in hand are offline.
Yeah. All right. So I think he's
Okay.
really like not going to use it. So
Well, no, what I was going to do is I was going to say activate Viscount's effect to summon
oh,
himself.
okay. We'll just do
Yeah,
that now.
because he might respond better to an effect on field rather than an effect to scale.
Nope.
No, what is wrong with
Nope.
this man?
What
Okay,
what is this
sure.
guy doing? All right, fair enough. All right, try
He
ban
must
on
know
with
what the field
Baron.
spell does.
All right. You want to try to because it's not a. This is the monster negate, right? Oh no, he's gonna add. We're gonna card a hand. Okay. Um,
Which card is he gonna add?
I don't know.
Probably the one that pops a monster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that. Then you
Well, see,
banish.
what we
Okay.
probably should have done, we probably should have not added the field spell so soon, because if he knew we had the field spell, he might be on guard for it. But if he thought
Yeah.
that we were just on monsters, he might have done something about it.
Yeah.
So I say let's go ahead and activate the field spell just to get it out of the way. If he negates it, he negates it. If he doesn't, he doesn't.
Okay, he's gonna negate it. He knows how to read.
Now
This guy knows how to read.
he's gonna get rid of Lilla, and then Lilla can come back and pop a monster.
Okay. Oh, he's not. He's not gonna. Okay. So what are you thinking?
So
Beyond, grab high.
yeah, might as well. We might as well go to Beyond, because I don't think we're winning this one because we added a field spell too early.
Yeah. He's got the thing in hand, doesn't he? But it doesn't negate, does it? It just targets and destroys.
Yeah, but we might be in trouble then. Well, he may go to his battle phase, so
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of losing. I think we got the one good replay, but okay. Okay, negate. All right. Yeah, we kind of got screwed over.
yeah, we're not winning here.
Yeah, we're not winning here. Okay, I think we'll just get the one replay, right? We'll just leave it the one replay and bounce. All right. Well, thank you for so much for coming on. All right. Well, thank you again for coming on today. Really happy to show this deck and put it onto YouTube as well. And thank you guys for watching. If you guys were on the Twitch, thank you for following and subscribing for everyone else. I will catch you in the next one. All right. So, sayonara.